Hello and welcome to About Making Local and Natural Materials. This is our second online dialogue in a series of 3. And today we'll be hearing from Vin Varavarn and Rodrigo Gonzalez, who I'll introduce very shortly. My name is Stephen Knott, and I'm a researcher, writer and lecturer in craft theory and history, and will be the moderator of today's dialogue. Today's dialogue forms, I'll just start with a little introduction about the dialogue and the About Making project. So today's dialogue forms part of the About Making project by Alina Jamil Architects, who's based in Malaysia, and partners here in the United Kingdom comprising of myself, Dr. Christoph Lueder and Abby Fletcher. And this project is supported by the British Council's Connections Through Culture grant. Today's dialogue, which is the second of a series of 3, serves as a response to a set of episodes available on YouTube, produced over the last 3 months, that mainly comprise of interviews with craftspeople, architects and designers in Malaysia, the broader region of Southeast Asia and the United Kingdom, primarily the London and the greater region of London. These interviews explore different aspects of making and processes in craft and architecture, the interwoven relationships between these two fields, and the sustainable solutions that arise from speaking to and learning from traditional craftspeople. The episode features interviews with Showmaker in Thailand, Shao Architects in Indonesia, and the one-to-one collective Notpla and Amin Tahar in the UK. The first dialogue, which was about tradition, was on the 14th of March with Martina Margits in the UK and Andy Rahman Architects in Indonesia, is also available from the YouTube channel, which you can access through the About Making website. So the core film in the series, episode 3, features interviews with traditional craftspeople in Malaysia and is titled Tukang. The Tukang is a generic Malay word for someone who is skilled in any art of making. But in this context, it means a craftsperson who's well versed in the building techniques of traditional timber houses found in Malaysia and other parts of Southeast Asia. Academics and architects often laud and equate these timber houses with ideal sustainable models of architecture for the tropics and beyond. But one element that is often missing from the conversation is the role of the craftsperson or tukang and their processes in the creation of a rich architectural culture. Traditionally, a house tukang would be responsible for the design and build from start to completion. He is a passionate master builder, working with a team of apprentices. He is a skillful carver and fully understands aesthetics. He has a deep knowledge of material and knows where to source them. He is also a ritual leader, working in accordance with a highly ordered process within the framework of geomancy and religion. Lastly, he is seen as a leader, working closely with members of the community in various stages of the building process. So today we will concentrate on that issue of deep knowledge of materials that the tukang possess as our theme. In the interviews with the tukang craftspeople, we learn about how integral the chengal wood is for the construction of vernacular Malay houses, how it is integral to the structure of the building, how it resists the heat and humidity of Malaysia, its durability, its resistance to rot and insects, and critically, how it is a material local to the region. From a quick internet search, I can see images of chengal trees with huge trunks and tentacular, knobbly roots. It's a tree specific to Malaysia and its particular climate, and is subject to, I noticed, to strict regulation in terms of export due to kind of its material scarcity. So maybe we'll kind of return to these issues of material sourcing and scarcity and export later on. So in the presentation and the Q&A discussion afterwards, we'll think about these issues of sourcing materials, thinking about their manipulation, experimentation, about material intelligence, and more broadly, how we can learn from the rich material culture of tukang in contemporary architecture, craft and design. So I'll just introduce the 2 speakers in their biographies now, and then we'll just go straight into the presentations. So Vin Varavarn was born in Bangkok, Thailand. He received his Bachelor Degree in Interior Architecture from KMITL, Thailand, and received his AA Diploma from the Architectural Association School of Architecture, or more often known as the AA, here in London. After graduation, Vin worked in London for several years before returning to Bangkok to establish his own practice. Vin Varavarn Architects is the name of this practice, and it was established in 2005. Vin believes in the simplicity of architecture, the value of local materials, and the appropriation of craftsmanship. And Rodrigo Gonzalez is a designer, architect, and inventor, and appears on episode 5 of the About Making YouTube channel, on the YouTube channel. He is co-founder and co-CEO of Notpla, a London-based startup with the goal of making packaging disappear. Their product, Ooho, is an edible package made of seaweed that can contain water or any other liquid. Nowadays, it's used in many sporting occasions, including the London Marathon and the French Open at Roland-Garros. So I will now hand over the floor to Vin, who will share a presentation. Thanks very much for joining us. Thanks to our speakers.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. Shall I share my screen now?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Vin from Vin Varavarn Architects. First of all, I would like to thank you to Elena and everyone at the team for inviting me to be part of this interesting dialogue. This is a great pleasure for me to be here to listen and share our thought with all of you today. Just to introduce ourselves a little bit, our studio located in Bangkok, Thailand. We work on architectural design for a wide range of projects, such as residential, commercial, or cultural projects, as well as continually working with various non-profit organizations and foundations in the design of social architecture projects for different communities, such as local schools in different rural areas around Thailand, and our ongoing project, the prototype of low-cost house for homeless. Because of various types of projects in our studio, the opportunity for us to work with big firm contractor may not always happen. Many of our projects constructed by local contractor in the area, and this would be because of the budget and operations constraint. Therefore, working with local people is one of the key factors that we are always interested in and take into account in our design process, whether it's about understanding and supporting them or learning and sharing ideas. Today, I've decided to select one of our recently completed projects to share with everyone. Our project is Panna Sufficiency Economy and Agriculture Learning Center. The project is located in Nakhon Ratchasima province, about 3 hours drive from Bangkok. It is a commissioning project by the private investor who want to create a learning center to expand the knowledge of sufficiency economy philosophy and the new agriculture model to Thai people. The main activities of the center is to organize the course lesson for people both local and from other cities in Thailand, from 1-day course up to 2-week course. The lessons are a mixture between indoor and outdoor activities. It is mainly a process of learning by doing. Panna project is located on 14-acre site that has been transformed with reservoirs and farming areas based on sufficiency economy philosophy and the new theory agriculture of the late King Rama IX of Thailand. There are 2 main buildings that we had decided to support the activities of Panna Center. The one on the right is an activity center building and the restroom station building on the left. The activity center building is the main building of the project to serve the indoor activities for the user and also a workplace for the staff. The activity center is placed as the landmark among the vast agriculture fields designed to facilitate flexible uses with natural light and natural ventilation. And during the design process with our client, we intend to promote how these ideas of self-sufficiency can apply to construction in rural areas and not just be confined to traditional building types. We believe that the local craftsmanship and the local materials can be transformed to create modern designs which are attractive, well suited for present-day way of life, durable, as well as achieving harmony with the environment. The Activity Center is a two-story building designed as a large and open pavilion to accommodate users in a variety of functions with flexible space. Spaces are arranged in the central structure as stacked blocks, cantilevering outwards into the covered external spaces. On the ground floor level, locate the seminars, the reception and office, and the kitchen alongside an external canteen and catering space. On the second floor, locate the staff meeting room, technical control room, and the guest reception room. The seminar room on the ground floor can serve up to 100 to 150 people. The room can be fully open for natural ventilation and can be fully closed for air conditioning during the hot summer. The seminar room connects to the welcome hall area, so both spaces can be connected for extra seating when needed. On the other side of the building is the semi-outdoor space for canteen that can also adapt into workshop area. The spaces are finished with concrete floors and no fixed furniture, meaning they can be entirely flexible to suit a variety of use. The upper level where locate the staff area can look over and observe the various activities on the ground level. And because this project is all about the natural resources, such as soil, water, sunlight, and nature, so we decided to implement this philosophy into our architecture design by using natural resources as our building materials. The soil from the foundation excavation is stiff and used to invent a formula for plastering the walls by gaining traditional knowledge from the clay house expert. The color of soils becomes the color of architecture. The texture of the plastering is coming from the hand of our local people. Also, the local materials, such as local bamboo, has been proposed for the roof. We work with the local craftsmen to create our own bamboo roofing by using local bamboo. And instead of using chemical treatment, the bamboo was treated by soaking it in one of the canals on the site in order to improve its durability before cutting it into the required shapes. We want our architecture to be an example for people to see that the nature around us can become a good resource to create good architecture design. The big area of the roof is designed to collect the rain with its geometric form. The roof will spread the rainwater into many directions, reduce the storm flow of water goes into the land. The rainwater from the roof will be directed into small channels close to the structure, which in turn lead to the reservoirs on the site to be used during the drought season. Also, with the curvy and diverse shape of the channel, it helps to slow down the speed of running water, which is suitable for moisture to permeate into the soil. At night, we can see the form of the roof wrapping the spaces of light underneath. The roof helps to protect the light, not to intervene to the natural surrounding. Located next to the activity center is the restroom station building. Both buildings connected by the elevated covered walkway. And from our research, the public restroom is one of the pain points of the project, as families with kids, women, and elderly always have a negative feeling about it, with concerning about the safety, the cleanliness, and the uncomfortable atmosphere. And because of that, we want to change the negative perception of it and create a user-friendly restroom that everyone wants to use. The brick has been chosen as the main material of the building to represent the natural character of red soil in the site. The circular layout plan has been proposed. The restroom space that created by two curving brick walls separated male and female spaces. Three main spaces has been created, male and female restroom and a waiting area in the middle. Both male and female restroom will provide with all needed facilities such as toilet, shower rooms, dressing area, and etc. All main functions are placed in the center of the room while encircled by the circulation. And because of the layout, the restroom will have no dead end and also provide more area and comfortable atmosphere for our user. And since the walkway circulation inside the room is not that big, with a solid wall on both sides, we then designed the outside wall to be curved like a traditional Thai jar. This can help to create a more wider vision for the user while keeping the same building construction footprint. And not just a curved wall, but we want to experiment with a three-dimensional curved wall. The curve gives the soft and gentle feeling to the solid wall. While the red brick represents the local material, the steel support structure, on the other hand, represents the new industrial material. For us, the combination of both materials convey to the coexistence of the local wisdom and the advancement of the construction science. While the brick walls opening pattern has provided good ventilation for the building, the opening pattern also relates to the functions of the restroom. While some parts of the wall are open for ventilation, some parts are totally closed for full privacy, such as shower and dressing areas. The big rocks that can easily find around the site are applied as casual seatings for the waiting area. Inside the restroom, the function area is placed in the middle, surrounded by walkways for good traffic. The interior wall is made of local brick wall, plastering with soil from the site. Same techniques as we use for the activity center. While some internal areas are separated by using bamboo weaving partition from the local handcraft. The long skylight has been proposed on the gable roof. This helps to bring the natural light into the space for energy saving. Also, the heat from sunlight helps to reduce the moisture inside the room. In Thailand, one of the current construction problems is the decrease in the number of craftsmen. Most local workers are no longer interested in creating complex or sensitive works as in the past. For this project, since we have chance to work with local workers in the area, we then want to try to collaborate with them and support them to do something that they have never done before, something more difficult and more delicate. At the same time, we also learned a lot from them in many ways, such as the traditional construction techniques or traditional materials. So for us, at the end of the day, it was a good process of sharing and learning from each other. When the time changed, the architecture perception has changed. The architecture became lighter and more open. During the nighttime, the light from the building helped to illuminate the surroundings. At night, the restaurant building can still provide a good, secure, and interesting atmosphere for the user. For us, both buildings that we have designed for Panna project reflect the belief that architecture is a living science that must transform and grow with new development in technology in response to evolving human needs and behaviors. By valuing local wisdom and encouraging local craftsmen and producers to upgrade their capabilities, for us, we hope to see the project serving as a bridge between the knowledge of the past and the process of transformation to a more sustainable future for the community. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vin. That was a wonderful overview of that project Center. And yeah, apologies for mispronouncing your name. I will pass over to Rodrigo now for you to share your screen. And we'll come back to questions after.
Thank you very much. I'm Rodrigo. I'm one of the co-founders of Notpla. Good. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with these objects. Doesn't matter if you are in Malaysia or in Bangkok or in London. They are plastic objects. They work really well. It's a really wonderful material, but sometimes there's a mismatch between the time that we use them and the time that the material is going to be out there. So these products, sometimes they get used in minutes, and the material is going to last a few hundreds of years. So there's a big mismatch, and normally they end up in microplastics, in pollutes erosion, etc. That's why we created this object. We call it Ooho, because it's the name that people give it when they see it for the first time. They make that sound. And basically, it's a membrane that can encapsulate any type of liquid made out of seaweed. It's a membrane because nature used membranes to encapsulate liquids. It's the most efficient way, either in architecture or in a small product design scale, or in our cells to encapsulate any type of liquid. It's a technique that we didn't invent. This technique had been there since the 30s to make things like fake caviar. Basically, it's using seaweed. In Southeast Asia, especially, this is quite popular. Not that much in Europe, but like seaweed is a great source of material. Maybe not too widely used in architecture, but we use it a lot for food, among other applications. It grows really fast. Doesn't need fertilizer. Doesn't need fresh water. Doesn't need farmland. So I think it's a really good resources for us. We collect seaweed, and basically we make it into a material that is edible, not only by humans, but as well by worms or by any other organism. And you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, one of the time lapses where one of our materials get consumed by worms in 10 days. Orange peel will take a couple of weeks, cardboard will take around a month, and PLA, or what is called now compostable plastics, will never disappear in normal composting conditions. They need a specific heat and temperature and pressure to disappear. We started in a kitchen really humbly, just buying products and encapsulating them. And we started by putting them on the hands of people, and people giving feedback and saying, oh, you cannot close it back. And it's not hygienic if you eat it directly. So coming back to the analogy of fruits, trying to think how fruits does this, and you always have this peel that you can have a multi-segment product with it. So we started developing the material, but we raised some money as well to start to make machinery. So basically, we started to put together a team of engineers to build a machine that could make this product. And this is the last evolution of this machine. The idea as well is that you can produce locally. So you don't need to, for example, if you're producing water for a marathon, you don't need to move the packaging. You can move the machine and produce on the spot. And yeah, basically these are the products that we do at the moment. We do it for liquids, for things like the London Marathon, as it was described before, but we provide a beer runner with energy drink. We have done as well Tropicana for Roland-Garros, little orange that you can consume. We had a bar in South Kensington where we have juices and cocktails. We had done a few collaborations with whiskey companies. We had vending machines. We do collaborations as well with sauce companies. And yeah, we try to believe sometimes that we try to design fruits, so really similar to what nature does, but with other type of content. So this is like toothpaste. In our first product, and we have been working quite a lot on coatings. Coatings meaning a material that you need on cardboard or on cardboard packaging in order to make it waterproof. You need to put something on it, because if not, cardboard is soluble in water, so it doesn't receive this type of application. So normally there is a layer again of plastic on it. If not, yeah, the cardboard gets soaked, and we put the same seaweed into cardboard, and you can see all the films how the worms eat the cardboard, but not the liner, not the coating. And we have been working on this application for a while now, mostly to put oil barriers into cardboard for takeaway packaging. So mostly we're making this product for a company called Just Eat. They're a delivery platform in UK. Now we're working as well with them on Netherlands and in Germany, supplying these boxes to different restaurants. And suddenly we have been working as well quite a lot on films. So films making a material in a roll form that we can use for different applications, like screw sachets or pasta. Always trying to make something else that plastic cannot do, like making the material soluble in different ways or forms, and yeah, for different type of applications. And, really quickly, as we were saying, we use seaweed. Seaweed, 80% of the seaweed is fiber, 20% is extract, and then we started to use that fiber part as well to produce other type of products. So things like paper. So we can make paper out of this fiber. So it's a paper that doesn't come from trees. Paper that comes from seaweed has quite particular aspect, but it works quite well for certain products. And yeah, lately we have been trying to make as well some hard materials. So basically we can compress this fiber into different forms and shapes, and making different type of trays or cups or lids. And this has been one of the latest development that we do. Sometimes as well, we work with other local materials or realities. This is a project we have done in Spain with olive oil company. Olive oil, again, is like 20% of the olive is oil, 80% is fiber. And at the moment, this fiber gets to waste. And we're trying to see how we can play circularity concepts around it and make with this fiber different type of products to contain oil, like this one is a pipette. And similar thing for almond. So almond, there's a lot of waste on the almond, and we try to repackage the almond with that waste, different forms and shapes, so it becomes a circular model. Or similar things with cherries. Like these are the cherries, and there is a lot of stocks that they get discarded, and we can kind of like make that stock into packaging and replace the plastic packaging with it, either hard or flexible. So yeah, I think this is what I wanted to share with you today, and open it up a bit the conversation, a bit different from the lovely community center, but I think there might be quite a lot of points in common as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo, and thank you, Wim. It's great to have this time to discuss these two different areas, product and architecture. But as you say, Rodrigo, there's lots of connections that hopefully we'll be able to explore. I also wanted to write, I know that Christoph Lueder, Dr. Christoph Lueder will join us for the discussion as well. and will interject his fellow kind of collaborator on the About Making project. So he'll definitely kind of pitch in very soon. But I thought to start on something that maybe does draw together the two presentations quite well. Oh yeah, just to say, any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll be able to kind of respond to them before I get started. And so my question is very much about the collaboration with others that have material knowledge that kind of exceeds or is of a different kind to your own. So that does join these two vastly different areas, architecture and product. I just wanted to kind of ask you, like, how you did engage, in your case, Wim, with the local craftspeople that had the knowledge to maybe think about the relationship that you had in order to upgrade their capabilities, as you said. How did you withdraw material specialism? And then with you, Rodrigo, how did you work with the material scientists, I presume, in your case, to really understand seaweed?
Okay, it's me first. Actually, it's this idea coming from during the time that I work for the schools in rural area around Thailand. We found that the school that locate in different area, they have different kind of problems, and at different specific space or a specific location, we need to understand the environment, the materials that we can use. So we found that to have a chance to work and to talk with people and local craftsmen in the area, it gives us a lot of knowledge and idea of how to understand the specific location and specific environment that our architecture should respond to that. For example, like the building in the north part and the building that located in a very small island in the south part of Thailand have completely different environment. And we have to understand that what kind of material, what kind of process of construction can be respond to the problem. So that is the beginning of the idea of we should collaborate with the people in the area to be able to understand what are we going to do and what we should do. Yeah, that's my point of view.
Probably from my side, something quite similar. So we had to work from the beginning with people that know much more about certain topics than us. There's a lot of difference in terms of like similar, I suppose, in terms of geography, but here in terms of seaweeds, for example, there's a lot of different type of seaweeds that, and even inside of the same seaweed, you can get different properties if you extract the extract from the stem than from the root. So there's a lot of variables there that we didn't know and we had to learn. We had to work with universities as well to try to understand a bit better how things work. But like we have to become an expert ourselves to a certain extent to be able to talk a bit the same language. What else? We had a bit of a issue at the beginning in terms of working together with material scientists, at least from our side. We are quite used to design thinking approaches and iterations where you can iterate things really quickly. And the first time that we had some postdoc working on the project, and we tell them, oh, can you try today if this and this works in terms of like this material? And they say, sure. Well, we need to design a test and then we have to test the test in order to test what you are asking us to do. And probably it's going to take us 6 months to design the test to validate that the test of the test works. So for us, it was like, wow. And so it was a bit of a clashing in terms of like the scientific approach where you need, like to have something really demonstrable and really scientific and you can replicate and you have like a lot of decimal numbers. And for us, it was just thumbs up or thumbs down in terms of like this more or less works or not. And it's worth it to keep pushing or it's something that we should start tomorrow again with something new. So that was a bit of a different way of working with other people. And I think we, at the end, both of the fields benefit from each other's angle and methodologies. And yeah, we I think it's important that as well to understand how many disciplines or how many stakeholders there is as well to give input, because there is not only on the material, it's not the material scientist is the main one, but like, for example, the people who, for us, for example, collect the seaweed or farm the seaweed are sometimes even more important than the chemists themselves. But as well, people who have been in industry for a long time and they have been working with other materials as well, they have other part of the knowledge that in terms of like what are the barrier properties that we need to aspire, or how these materials at the moment are processed, etc. So I think it's important as well to identify everyone who will have a piece of information or a voice into this piece of big puzzle, I suppose, that you need to put together. I suppose doesn't matter if it's a product or if it's a building. There's a lot of people involved.
Mm.
And I really like the idea of that you're saying, Wim, about craftspeople as a key to local knowledge. And just before going to Christoph, there's just a quick follow-up question for Wim, in the sense that Rodrigo talked about the difficulties of sometimes working with material scientists who like test the test. I mean, was there any similar or any challenges that you had with the local craftspeople?
Always. Yes.
What kind of what's the nature of them, if you were to?
Sometimes it's not about the materials, but sometimes it's about the process of working. Because when you do something that sometimes is quite new for them, they do not understand why we have to do that, why we have to do those, and we have to supporting them and make them understand that there are reasons behind the design that we need to do it. For example, the restroom station. when we construction, once one of the workers come and tell me that, are you an architect? You know what? This is one of the most difficult toilet I have ever built in my life. So I said, oh, is that a compliment? Anyway, thank you very much. I mean, there are some difficulty during the time that they don't understand what they do. But after the work is complete, I can see that everyone are so proud of what they have passed through, all the difficulties, every detail that we work together, and they come up to another level. And after that, they can do anything that they want to. Because one of the problems in Thailand is that most of the craftsmanship is more like disappearing. Most of the Thai workers, they go to like Middle East or something to work, and we have to import the worker from Myanmar and Cambodia into Thailand. It can be a short-term solution, but for the long term, if you're looking to a long term, I think we will lack of the knowledge of knowledge transfer from generation to generation, which I think it will be very serious in the future. So what we're trying to do in every work that we build the architecture is that we want to help some of the workers, some of the local people to have fun with what they do. I think that's the most important thing for the sustain idea. It's not about the building, but it's about the mind thinking. I think that make more sustainable. Yes.
In that sense of the kind of pushing, or sort of, you said upgrade capability, but like pushing or working with to ensure that a material intelligence stays within a community or an economy, and actually to keep vernacular traditions dynamic through a kind of design interjection. Like, why don't you spend this much time thinking about design of the toilet, the restroom, and that kind of confidence building, creating this sort of relevant for class practice. But it's a really interesting thing of that kind of relationship of how design can help its role in highlighting the importance of craftsmanship. Christoph, you had your hand up. Do you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I can just follow up on this idea of keeping the vernacular tradition dynamic. I think that's something that ran in different ways through both presentations, I thought, and also would really like to thank both presenters for these wonderfully evocative and poetic presentations. I think also, I thought the idea of membrane really connected both the way that you explicitly use the term, but I think also the sensibility of the way you use brick, for example, of materials being treated in a way that this has become evocative of the idea of membrane of something else. And perhaps one of the threads complementing engagement with craftspeople would be engagement with the local communities using the building, in your case, Vin, or with the different stakeholders engaged in the products, in your case, Rodrigo. And I was wondering, perhaps taking this idea of life cycle that Rodrigo very explicitly highlighted to your project, Vin, where I could see the bamboo shingles that you treated in order to make them more durable, and you use them alongside steel and glass. So you are combining materials that have different life cycles, and maybe they have also different needs for being renewed or replaced. And was kind of wondering, I think it's a very new building, but I also know that you have completed buildings over time for some years, whether is an idea of parts of the building having different life cycles being replaced, and whether there is some continuing involvement of craft in that process.
Yes, that's one of the things that we have discussed with the project owners about the durability of bamboo and things like that. But actually, because of the owner, they have land that they grow bamboo by their own farm, so they can replace the bamboo with the tree that they have in the farm. And the way we treat the bamboo and things like that, the knowledge, everything is not from my side. It's all from the local people who teach me that that's a process of doing things that you can skip all the chemical treatment because it's a farming, so they avoid to use all the chemical things like that. That's one point that we consider other materials for the roof. For example, like a more like other, I can't remember the name, but it's not a natural materials. And then at the end of the day, the owner think that if we want to do the project, if we want to go for this approach, they agree to use the bamboo instead of other materials, and the building have the life cycle that they can replace it. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely.
Yes, I think it's probably something that might unfold over time as well. I was wondering a little bit, maybe, I don't know whether to continue this conversation around the experience of the different stakeholders, also the users. And I think you mentioned the importance of education, of really involving people in passing on that knowledge, and maybe to take it back to Rodrigo and the stakeholders who are much less defined by a place, who might be anywhere in the world. But I think there's perhaps also this process of awareness and of I think also maybe adapting certain very convenient patterns of life, and was kind of wondering a little bit whether that plays a role in your work as well, this idea of the projects or the packaging also changing behaviors. Maybe education is not a good word for it, but to make a change to people's lives and to ways of actually consuming and storing and transporting food.
Sure, a few remarks on that. So I think it's interesting because even if I suppose packaging is something that you can move quite easily in comparison with a building that is fixed on the place where you put it, this connection with the local materials and local stories and still is quite relevant. I think, for example, now we do sell packed in boxes, for example, and made from seaweed. And most of our customers are business that they are based in the coast, because I think for them it's much more relevant, the story, and probably they're a bit more linked with the seaweed and the seaside and the plastic pollution that goes into the sea, and they want to be part of that story. So I think it's interesting how this idea of local materials still is something relevant to the user even in this scale of products. In terms of education, I suppose we propose sometimes a bit of a radical change in terms of how consume liquids like water, right? Like you eat the water, you don't drink the bottle as a normal way. So you really need to educate to a certain extent, but it's mostly to show the product, because it's something that sometimes the consumer is not conscious of. I think it's really similar to what we were talking before about this wall that is not straight, and the builder didn't want to build it, right? Because it seems quite complex, because it's why a wall is not straight for a bathroom, and needs to have this complexity. But once you see it, it's like, oh wow, this is really nice. It's not just on a wall, but it's like like continuity from the space and how it fluents. And even if you are not an expert on it, you appreciate the qualities. So I think for us it's a bit similar. It's like we don't want only to educate, but we want to educate, but we want to educate through the product in the same way that you educate through the architecture, right? Once it is built, you make the sense out of it. If you see it maybe in a plan, or if you try to educate it in a theoretical way, it will be really hard. But through the use of the product, and if you make something, I don't know if the word is sexy, or something appealing for the consumer, or for the user, for the people, they will. I suppose the best is if the building or the product can educate the user or the person who is using that by itself. It doesn't need an instruction manual, or it doesn't need a class, or it doesn't need a specific education program in order for them to enjoy and understand and appreciate the qualities of the material or the product itself or the space, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, we got a quick comment here from Alina, a very interesting one. She says it's just a comment, not really a question, but she says it's interesting to see the differences in approaches in the use of natural materials in both of your work. Rodrigo is taking advantage of the biodegradable properties in seaweed, whereas Vin is more interested in their carbon sequestration properties and relationship to local cultural communities. But both the approaches are rooted in kind of vernacular culture, and clearly have sustainability as their goal. And then she's also provided more of a direct question to Wim here about the sort of more cultural context of Southeast Asia. And she says, she asks, Southeast Asia is developing very rapidly, and with this development comes resistance to using natural and local materials. Many regional clients and developers prefer industrialized materials like steel, glass, and concrete to reflect that idea of progress and growth. So, Win, how do you convince clients to accept the use of sustainable natural materials and the local craftsman's knowledge of it and their own processes in your work?
It's not always happen. There are some words that I can use the natural material, but there are also some projects that I can't be able to approach them to understand the way the benefit of the natural materials, because I think all architects will really understand, because when we talk about natural materials, we also talk about the maintenance that come up with the long-term, because architecture is a thing that have to stay for like 50 years, 100 years. So people who are going to build something, one of their concern is about the maintenance of the building that they're going to build. So we have select some program and some projects that we can be able to approach the owner with the natural materials, but not always happen. But because our project is, some of the project is also about cultural project, and also the project that we talk about the low-cost building, we talk about really limited budget building for people who are in like a student in other part of Thailand. So in that case, we can be able to approach them with natural material, which can save the cost, and also they can replace it easily by the local worker, and they can find a resource and build and maintenance by their community easier. That's the main thing. So we have two approach of designing. Some of them we can approach them with the natural material, but some other project we can't. We have to accept that.
Absolutely, there's kind of different conditions, and the Panar Centre seems to be very much related to the kind of farming of the area, so it makes complete sense to have the local materials being used because it's linked to the function of the building. I wanted to ask Rodrigo a question that kind of draws a little bit out of the one of the episode 5 of the About Making, where there's lots of shots of your workshop in Hackney in East London. And you get a kind of sense of the atmosphere. And I wondered, there's kind of two questions in this. Number one, I was interested to see a shot of the materials library in your workshop, the kind of Notpla materials library. We've talked about education, and I just wondered what the role of the materials library that you have is in Notpla, and also about how you encourage the playing with material. That seems quite important to the design stage of Notpla. It seems there's a kind of playfulness. How do you play with materials and have tolerance for the failure and the risk involved and the inefficiency and maybe the loss of money as a kind of startup? How do you incorporate playfulness and playing with material?
Mm-hmm. So I think it has to do quite a lot with the scale that you play with the materials with, and I think the scale of design for us is a good scale to play with materials. If you compare it with the scale of chemistry, for example, or the scale of commercial opportunities, or the field, not the scale, maybe. We have a materials library that it was put together by the designers in order to inspire the chemists to use a bit more natural materials. Chemists, they have this ability to think on molecules, but it's really hard for them to think on sources, for example, or think on a scale of products or how to link things. So we just basically started this library normally generalizing, but like the normal tool that a chemist has is reading papers, different scientific papers that have been done before, and you have molecule names, and then you can go in Sigma Aldrich is a website or a company that they have all the really purified materials that you can order, and they're all quite expensive, but you are certain that is the most precise and clean molecule, if that makes sense. While what we are interested is not on that, or not on that only, but more as well into see where the material comes from, what was the full story of the material, how they extract it, what is the waste of that extraction, what is the impact from a carbon perspective, where it's come from, what is the aesthetics that material could give us, what's the smell. There is a lot of, I suppose, other values that they are not just on the molecule level, but on how you could manipulate it in different ways. So that's why as well we have a little library and how we try to make everyone play a bit with it. So that's a bit the beginning.
It's fascinating how the library is for the chemists, where you think that they would be the ones sort of really aware of materials. Like you say, their knowledge is very abstract, molecular, and less kind of tactile. So designers, a lot of designers, not all, but that have that kind of material curiosity, and to sort of show it is kind of interesting. I was not expecting that it was designed for the chemists or the specialists. Just a quick follow-up question, more out of my curiosity. Does the material taste when you drink things? I presume it doesn't. Is there any kind of difference when you eat the water? sensory, whether it's taste or texture?
Well, you should come as Christoph next time that you are around East London to try this even. Everyone is invited. But no, it doesn't, or we try to work to remove any type of taste into the seaweed itself. It's more the texture if you eat it than the taste. It's not gelatin, but it's a gelatinous texture. So when you chew it, it's something like quite gummy, but it's not. It doesn't have any taste. You can add taste if you want. So you can put some cucumber taste or some mint taste, or you can play with it. But to start with, it doesn't have taste.
I'm just going to invite everyone before we finish. I've got a hand up.
I have one question, but I can also see that one of our guests is typing. So maybe I'll ask my question and we can then come to the question in the chat later. I think, Rodrigo, you made the role of technology very explicit in your presentation. And I was just going to ask maybe about technology, a question to you, Vin. When I saw these very, very beautiful, very poetic brick membranes you constructed around the toilets, and I think also other parts of the building, it kind of reminded me as well of the current use of robots to make these patterned brick walls. I think that's at least in Europe, at the ETH in Zurich and North America, this is very, very strong interest in that area. And now I just wondered about your views. And I think it's different if people do that. I think maybe there's also kind of poetry and maybe also the product is different. Do you think that, can you reflect a little bit maybe on that kind of approach from two very different directions?
Yes, we're also interested in the robotic and all the drone construction as well. We're thinking that there are another approach that we can, I mean, we don't have to go into one direction, but we can go to both direction, the direction of the technology that can help. And I think all the robotic and drone construction can be very benefit to some disadvantaged people who live far away. I think that is the thing that we want to study about. But on the other hand, the craftsmen also very thing that we are interested to work with also. So both way of working are both important for the Thai construction industry. I mean, if we go for the robotic, then the craftsman will be kind of disappear in the future. But if we can still bring them together, I think we can find some solution for different kind of architecture in long terms.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Christoph.
I was going to say the same. I think one of us should read out the question that Florence has put in the chat. Should I do that? Is that okay? So Florence is asking, I have a question for Rodrigo. How do you manage the potential impact of pollution in ocean? How would it affect your raw material and end product? I'm not sure, Florence, whether you want to elaborate on that a little bit or whether you want to put the question to Rodrigo like this. Perhaps you want to I think I can see Florence is typing, but perhaps you want to maybe start with the answer already, Rodrigo,
sure.
If that's okay.
Yes, so we test our materials on different type of contexts. So I just use some warm marines, but like some of the materials as well, we test them. We have a bit of an aquarium in the in-house to test how ocean biodegradability works out. I think our materials are made from seaweed, and seaweed come from the ocean. So we have a bit this idea of like coming from the ocean, and if it goes to the ocean, it's a bit where we took it from, and we don't modify it at all. So it's a bit like if you take a leaf from a forest and you use it for something and bring it back to the forest, it should not be harmful for that specific ecosystem at all. It should be almost a benefit in terms of nutrients or in terms of like, almost fit. So I think we're quite confident, if that makes sense, that like this is not going to be if it's going to be an impact, it's not going to be a bad impact. through the growing of seaweed, there's a lot of carbon sink as well. That's something that we didn't touch too much on it, but seaweed grows quite fast, and during their growth, part of the plant goes to the bottom of the ocean and capture a lot of carbon through that growth. So there is a bit of a benefit there. It desacidifies the ocean as well, so it renovates some certain ecosystems. And when you see some farms popping up, it's always full of life in terms of like there's normally not only seaweed, but there's a lot of like animal life around those farms. Sometimes as well things like mussels are combined in terms of like the farming, etc. So yeah, I think hopefully we are doing a better job on that front than any other type of plastic packaging.
Very much. Do you have any more comments? I'm aware that we've come to the end of the hour, and had a really great discussion, and sort of revealed a number of really fascinating parallels between these kind of two very different areas, and some really good food for thought about how best to, think about local knowledges of materials, and then our kind of the role of design and architecture in supporting innovative solutions to maintaining dynamic traditions, and also the kind of a great elasticity of certain materials and their properties that you wouldn't necessarily see in just simple bamboo or simple seaweed. This kind of education of material education that I think everyone or lots of people are very much in need of, including myself and many others, I'm sure. So thank you so much, Rodrigo and Vim. It's great to have your talks. This episode will be available in an edited form on the About Making website. So if anyone wants to refer back to what we've been talking about, please do. And just it leaves me to say that there is a final discussion next Monday at 1:30 British time. And I think that's 7:30 in Malaysia. And please do sign on. We'll have members of the One-to-One Collective in the UK. So that's Salah Krichin and Pablo Feito Boriak. And Shout Architectures, which is Daliana and Florian Heisenman. So please do join us for that. And thank you very much, Rodrigo, Wim and Christoph. Thank you very much.